Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you to our legal expert, Mr. Matthew Ram, for joining us again this week. Today, he'll be discussing all things related to first-time investing, or even if you're a seasoned investor and you have some legal questions, he'll be able to cover the bare bones for you. And we'll also include his information on our bio so that you can have more information or more in-depth conversation. So thank you, Mr. Ram, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you again, too. So I'm going to just jump right into it and ask you the number one burning question. What goes into the closing for a first-time home investor?
Okay, so first-time home investor, it's a very similar process to a first-time home buyer or any typical purchase. I guess I can outline a few things that would be different or would stand out in an investment situation. The number one thing that causes the most confusion or I get most questions about is if you're an investor buying a pre-construction property. Mm-hmm. Now, there's something that a lot of investment buyers for new build properties aren't aware of or haven't been advised of, mm-hmm. and it ends up being an additional cost on closing, and it can cause some headaches. So there's something involved in the transaction called a HST. It's a GST HST rebate. Uh-huh. Now, just so you can understand how this works, when you purchase a property, 9 times out of 10, the builder says your purchase price includes HST. Let's say, for example, you buy a property of $500,000. That is inclusive of HST. Now, in actuality, the builder still has to remit HST to the government. So they're just paying it out of their end, which is great. They're covering that cost for you. Now, within your agreement of purchase and sale, they say, and by signing it, you agree that because they're paying that amount for you, you agree to assign to them or transfer them your eligibility for this GST HST new home rebate. Okay, it's about $24,000, around that amount. Now, it also says if you're not eligible, what in their determination, in their discretion, they will require you to provide the amount of that rebate on closing, and then you can self-apply afterwards. Okay? Now, what deems you ineligible for that rebate is if you are purchasing as an investor as opposed to principal resident, meaning you're planning to live there, you plan to invest. Mm-hmm. So this comes up on closing, right? So for whatever reason, either the builder finds out or your lawyer has to ask if you're going to reside there as a principal residence, and then we disclose to the builder that you're not. There's this additional $20-something thousand amount that you have to provide on closing.
Yes.
Okay? So that's something you should budget for as an investor. Now, after the fact, you can apply to the government and get this rebate back. Okay. It's somewhat case by case, so it's probably better to get into a more detailed conversation with the client. But typically, if they have secured a lease for 1 year, mm-hmm. they can apply for the rebate and get the money returned.
That's the easiest process, right?
Right.
Yeah, I know some people who even tell me that they've had to pay it up front and they were surprised they didn't know it existed.
Yes.
So I'm grateful that you've told us that, because even for agents out there who work in pre-construction or is not familiar with the pre-construction world, this is something really good that you should be advising your clients about.
Yes, it's somewhat confusing in how it works. This HST GST rebate essentially has nothing to do with HST and GST. It's just a rebate the government gives if you're buying a new house and you plan to live there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
there's always a loophole somewhere, right? If you don't know, it's better you find out and you get legal advice to make sure.
Sure.
I have clients who are very shocked in the end about the closing costs, even though I buffer to them what they should be paying or what they are going to be paying in the end. They're very surprised. And I've also had clients who have hidden pre-construction costs at closing, not capped.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a conversation we can get into about pre-construction because that's a very lengthy and
Which
detailed
is next
conversation
week,
we
and
could have.
I tune into that.
Yes, but you're right. There are a number of additional costs involved with a brand new property, whether it's a house or a condo.
Yeah.
Um, that if you get a lawyer to review agreement, which you should, they can advise you of that. Some of them you're able to eliminate or cap at a certain amount. Some of them you're not. But yeah, there are. I mean, as an investor, for the first time buying something pre-construction, plan for the fact, speak to your realtor and your lawyer so you understand the additional costs and can factor for that.
So last week we did a video on first-time home sellers, and the week before we did one on first-time home buyers. So generally, when it comes to first-time home buyers and first-time investors, the closing concept remains the same, more or less.
The process is the same, correct?
Okay.
Right?
So your firm, MSM Legal, offers first-time investors a document or kind of a roadmap to closing.
Yeah, so our closing process is the same. Once we get the agreement and it's firm on our end, we reach out to the client, gather the initial information we need to begin work on the file. As we work through the file, we'll maintain contact with the client and get whatever additional information we need. About a week or so before closing, we will meet with them to sign. Given the circumstances now, we do our virtual signing, where we just do it through Zoom or some other video platform. And then closing, is a typical process. Now, given COVID, it's the same, contactless closing where we close everything within our office and mail out documents and checks to clients or courier, sorry.
So the biggest question now is, this is completely with domestic or Canadian and Toronto-based projects, right? If you're closing,